Alright guys, today we are covering book 3 in the Harry Potter series. This is The Prisoner of Azkaban, and I'm assuming I'm saying that right. Again, just a reminder, I have never seen the movies, so a lot of my pronunciations may be wrong. And I've also only read through book 4 so far, so I don't, some of my assumptions may also be wrong. Just a reminder, this is a spoiler-free, it's just a review. It is not a synopsis or a story discussion. This is just my reactions as a older millennial picking up these books for the first time with absolutely no background, I mean, I've seen memes. That's as far as my knowledge of the Harry Potter world goes, and I had friends who were into it, but nothing of what they said ever made a lot of sense. So, Prisoner of Azkaban. What did I think of it? This one was the first of my iffy moments with the series, mainly because they get into divination, and when it first brought it up and it became a class that Harry Potter and Ron had to take, actually in this one Hermione as well, it did leave a bitter taste in my mouth as a Christian, and that's because as a Christian, divination is one of the very specific forbidden things in the Bible. Now, I will say this, reading this book is not me getting into divination, it is also not me supporting it, it is just the part of a story, and I understand that. I just didn't I have a hard time swallowing the fact that we're introducing the concept of a very spiritually dangerous concept to kids in a way that says, this might be okay. That's just my beliefs, and you could take that or leave it. I'm not saying that this book is bad because of it, it just left a slightly bitter taste in my mouth. That being said, I loved that, and this might be a little bit of spoiler, so I apologize if it is, but I loved that it wasn't taken very seriously. That made this book still okay for me. It wasn't taken seriously. It was still a class that is taught, and it's still discussed as part of the plot, but it's not taken seriously. In fact, there's multiple occurrences of students and teachers making fun of the class and the professor, and that kind of made me a little bit happier with it. It doesn't come out and say that divination is bad or wrong, or they don't cancel the class, they don't say that this is, that we just had the class just because, but they do make it very clear that as far as most divination goes, it is, and if you're into horoscopes or anything like that, this is all on the same spectrum. It is made vague enough to be believable. So if you're reading your horoscope, if you read it with the mindset that says this could happen to literally anybody, not just my sign or not just me, then you'll see how it could literally apply to any person who reads it. And that's how the divination in this book is taken. And I like that, because that is true. It only takes a little bit of truth to make a lie seem believable, or to make an unknown seem believable. I don't do horoscopes, I don't do astrology. Yes, I took astronomy in college, and that tends to screw me up for some reason, not sure how. But astrology, I don't do those. I don't even care what my sign is. I think I looked it up one time because I got tired of hearing about it and I just wanted to know what I could say. I don't even remember what it is now. And so that was the one thing of this book that I was not impressed with, but I liked how it was handled. For the storyline, I am noticing these books are getting darker and darker and darker, and as an adult, I am perfectly okay with that, and I love it. By this point, Harry is now 13, which I did not say at the last video, but by this point it was confirmed in my brain that this is going to cover a school year, which I think is really good for each book to cover a school year. I think that's creative. It's not the only series I've seen to cover like a period of time at the same time every year. In fact, another series that we're going to have here on the channel does the same thing. It covers like every fall to spring, which I love. I love that concept. It helps me know where we're coming in at. It's not jarring when you come in at a weird point in the school year or weird point in the summer. You pick up the book, you know you're starting in summer, and you know you're going to make it through the school year before it's over. Again, I've only read through book 4, so if that changes, don't tell me. No spoilers. But I love that I pick up this book and I know what to expect. That being said, it getting darker and darker and darker. When I pick up a book and I always focus in on the supposed age of the protagonist, in which case now Harry and his friends are now 13. So my mind says this is for a 13-year-old audience, which makes sense because these books probably came out, and I haven't looked it up, but they probably came out within a year or two of each other, which means that the original readers would be aging up with the books. However, it might also mean that someone who's 11 could do very easily what I did and read 3 books in a week. And so it depends on how you feel. If you're trying to figure out if you want your kids to read this series or to get into the series, it depends on how you feel, how you think they can handle some scary concepts, some dark concepts, loss, fear, hope, and hope being destroyed at the same time. I, again, really like how relatable these characters are in their absurdity. Like, they are, especially at Hogwarts, very absurd characters, but they're still relatable. And I really, as an aspiring novelist, I can appreciate the artistic depth to the characters. They are also very consistent characters, which I also know from experience is hard to pull off, especially among, now we're into 3 books, and I believe there's 7 total. I would like to see, I'm excited to see where the growth goes, and I am seeing growth in the characters, which is making me happy. I wish Harry would smarten up a little bit about knowing what to do when a problem arises first. He still seems to make the same mistakes of acting first and then having to go find help later. Again, that's part of the charm of these stories, is Harry getting out of the troubles he's not so much created. He didn't create these troubles, but he doesn't set himself up for success, which makes the stories intriguing. Which, he's a kid. He's a 13-year-old kid. You don't always know where to go the first time something goes bad. I'm loving that he is not afraid to say Voldemort's name. And I'm loving that a lot of the adults still are, because that is very typical of the younger generation who have a more objective outlook on an issue, and they can call it what it is. And sometimes adults who were coming up when the issue started to arise, whatever the issue might be, they might be shy of it because it was they've been through when there wasn't a time that this was an issue and now it is, and so they don't know really how to handle a conversation of it. Whereas a kid who's like, oh yeah, no, this is totally what this problem is, and this is why it's here, and this is what we can do about it. I am seeing that underlying thread through these series, and I like that as well. That could be me as an adult reading into something that wasn't supposed to be there, but it's a cool concept. The author does a very good job of keeping that concept clean. The books are getting longer, which as an adult I also am enjoying, and I love the creatures in this book. Now, as you can tell, I actually have some dragon things. I have a dragon mug. My favorite creature, now I'm not into wizards. This is my first real wizard thing outside of something like Lord of the Rings. I'm not into wizards as much when it comes to dragons. I love the creature, the dragon, the lizard, the flying lizard that could possibly breathe fire, feared, could maybe be tamed. I love stories around dragons that don't necessarily have to do with magic. So I have been falling in love with Hagrid and his creatures. And I'm actually wanting to read that, and I don't think it's a part of the series, but I think it is still part of the universe. Well, it's obviously still part of the universe, but it's the book of creatures. I don't know anything about it. I just know it's a book of creatures, and I'm excited to get, like, I want to get through the series so I can read that book, because that is what's intriguing me the most about these stories. The races, I'm going to call them races for lack of a better word, but the races of magic. So you have like the House Elves, you have the Dementors, you have the Wizards, the Muggles. The races of this universe are very intriguing as well. I'm seeing, obviously, especially with the House Elves, I'm seeing the tendency towards those races correlating with other races, like actual races. And I'm not sure how that went over when these books came out. That was not something I heard about, because again, when these were coming out, I was very much disconnected from them and just didn't care. So I don't know how, for instance, the House Elves have a very specific way of speaking that might be reminiscent of when African Americans were slaves in America. I don't know if that's true. That's how my brain is reading the dialect, or their way of speaking. And that might be my history as an American just coming out. And I know Dobie is not so much in this book, but Dobie was in the last one. But it felt like a very strong correlation between the House Elves and the African Americans of the early American, culture. And if you were around when these books were coming out and you know anything about that, give me some info in the comments. Let me know what happened. If I'm wrong, I could very easily be wrong in how I'm reading it. I do like that J.K. Rowling has a very good way of giving each character their own way of speaking, which is a very hard thing to pull off. The characters don't all sound the same. They all talk different. She's very good at spelling out the dialect. Southern versus, the House Elf dialect versus the Dementors. Well, the Dementors don't speak, but like the people who've dealt with the Dementors, like everybody has their own way of speaking and it's consistent. So I am very appreciative as an author, or as an author wannabe, of how this world has continued to evolve basically before my eyes. So, story-wise, I don't want to get into the story because I don't want to get into spoilers. This was probably one of my more favorite books as of the time of reading it. Again, I have read through 4, but I'm treating this review as if I've only read through 3. So up until 3, this is so far my favorite. I loved the concept of how everything was able to be done. And again, I'm not getting into spoilers, so I won't say it. But I think they handled a very difficult concept that movies and TV shows have a hard time doing very well for a book. I was happy with it. I wasn't left wanting. So yeah, that is The Prisoner of Azkaban.